Hi, my name is Ethan, and I'm presenting a topic on relapse prevention known as total abstinence. And it also addresses a specific problem that many people who are in the recovery process encounter, in which they end up engaging in something known as secondary drug use that puts them at greater risk of relapsing on their drug of choice. Most commonly, they use substances such as alcohol and marijuana mistakenly, and it's truly a beginner's mistake. But what I hope we're able to do in this presentation is to go over some of the risks associated with that and to address them aptly. Now, the goals of this presentation are to define what is meant by secondary drug use and to raise awareness around its inherent risk to long-term sobriety. Secondly, the goal is to provide a wealth of fact-based information regarding the specific effects of the most commonly used secondary drugs, specifically alcohol and marijuana, that increase the likelihood of relapse on one's drug of choice. Third, a simple activity will be introduced that will assist those who are in recovery in making a brief self-assessment regarding their secondary substance use risk. Now, our target audience in this particular talk is both clients and their family members. Now, total abstinence is intended to provide objective education for both the benefits of clients and the families who are involved, as they're all really invested in trying to make for a sustained, long-term, and optimal recovery program. Now, while many individuals who are getting sober manage to keep a very well-defended front door against their drug of choice, whether that is cocaine or heroin, they oftentimes mistakenly leave a less well-defended side door and or rear door against other substances that seem less problematic. Now, they oftentimes do not make the connection, as they think, well, this drug brought me into treatment and I need to prioritize that. But they don't see that there may be a connection to the others. Now, alcohol in particular may seem insignificant to a cocaine user. However, studies have shown that people who use cocaine are 80% more likely to relapse if they end up drinking alcohol. Now, this ends up becoming a problem, as if you look at the effects of alcohol, there are some really complex brain chemistry underpinnings to the relationship between cocaine. But simply put, alcohol is used for its disinhibiting effects socially. And when a person uses alcohol, they immediately begin to lose control over the parts of the brain that control things such as judgment, rational thought, analytical ability. Those are the same things that allow a person to drive effectively on the road, and are the reasons why people who get behind the wheel, even after a few drinks, are quite impaired. They keep follow too closely, they may weave in and out of traffic, and they become very dangerous on the road. Now, a person who is trying to stay sober, they need to be able to keep their judgment skills about them. They need to be able to make good, informed decisions, act quickly, and to be able to exercise that judgment at all times. And alcohol immediately interferes with their ability to do that. So it doesn't really matter what drugs they've used in the past. Alcohol is going to become a problem and is going to interfere with their ability to make those good recovery decisions. Now, the other thing too is that it's noteworthy that alcohol's legality and its ubiquity make it especially problematic for people to avoid. So many individuals even report that they have an easier time avoiding things such as heroin and cocaine than they do alcohol, given its wide use, and in fact they might even have it available in their home, which is a problem. Now, it's critical for all to understand and who are invested in the recovery process to know that striving for total abstinence and eliminating all mood-altering substances is going to create the best possible chance of sustained recovery. For instance, family members and others who have a situation where they, for instance, are going out to eat and they like to sit down and enjoy a nice meal together, are offered to sit at the bar while they wait for a table. This can be especially hazardous for the person in recovery, as it may be a temptation to use alcohol and to start this process of secondary drug use unintentionally. Now, going on to marijuana is another story. So marijuana, even though there have been a lot of legislative moves recently to decriminalize it, and it's often viewed as the lesser of the drugs or a lightweight of a drug, or even sometimes referred to innocuously as an herb, it certainly poses a problem to those in recovery who have an established substance use disorder. For instance, those who are recovering from opioid dependence or from cocaine dependence, they are 30% more likely to relapse on their drug of choice if they start using marijuana again. Also, it's noteworthy that clients who attempt to avoid people and places and things associated with their drug of choice may unwittingly have interactions with those very same people as they go about seeking marijuana. Now, third, secondary drug use, such as marijuana and alcohol, I should say, also do something that is problematic for recovery in that it blocks a person's ability to practice non-pharmacological coping strategies to deal with various life problems. And they end up ultimately always having some kind of substance involved in that coping process. And there's real advantage to being able to find ways to deal with those problems without immediately retreating and running away or numbing those very problems with a substance. So that marijuana can also interfere with a process through inducing a motivational syndrome. And this is something that's documented among high schoolers, as high schoolers who smoke marijuana heavily invariably end up having lower grades than others. Now, interestingly enough, this is a temporary phenomenon, as they have better grades almost instantly upon cessation of marijuana use. Now, these findings can be then generalized to adults later in life, and also it's been studied and observed in animals, which is very interesting, specifically rhesus monkeys. There was a very interesting study in which rhesus monkeys were outfitted in two different groups with a slot machine, Las Vegas style, that dispensed banana-flavored pellets after a certain number of pulls of a lever. Now, the control group, which was not smoking marijuana, would persevere and pull that lever up to 20 or more times until they achieved the reward of the pellet. Whereas monkeys who were made to smoke marijuana, they eventually gave up after a few tries and not getting the pellet. So that indicates that there was a loss of motivation toward critical life activities here. Now, the connection specifically for recovery in terms of marijuana use is that people often struggle to muster the necessary motivation and drive needed to stay sober from a particular drug. And oftentimes that drug was all-consuming in its ability to grab that person's motivation and to make it very focal and driven. So a person's ability to maintain their recovery focus and motivation is one of the key ingredients to long-term sustained recovery. Now, if a person begins smoking marijuana, that motivation is going to plummet very quickly, and they're not going to perceive the same need and the same drive to invest in recovery from other substances in the future. And that's well established. So it's going to possibly lead them back to their drug of choice, although it may not seem like a direct path to getting there. Now, an activity can demonstrate the concept of both secondary drug use and the importance of total abstinence. And this involves essentially having a client in recovery answer three basic questions. The first of which is, what drugs, if any, do you consider safe or safer than your drug of choice? Secondly, what substances, if any, are you considering using in the near future? And then third, based on your historical pattern of use, what would be the likely outcome if you began to drink alcohol or to resume smoking marijuana? Now, essentially, these three questions serve to highlight the individual's schema, mental schema, or hierarchy of classified mood-altering substances. Many people classify substances in their minds by legality, safety, addictive potential, and other things like that, harm. And these responses to the safer drugs points to the secondary drugs that could very well be problematic for that particular individual, as they will likely be a pit stop before the big relapse on cocaine or heroin or something else. And this simple question can help avert it and raise the awareness that we talked about in the beginning in terms of enhancing relapse prevention skill. Not only that, but for the family members as well. Now, as many individuals who consider using these substances don't always think their decision through, this very last question, which is based on your historical pattern of use, what do you think will happen if you start to use, that really forces the person to think more like a chess player and to think more like 3 to 6 moves ahead versus 1 or 2 moves that don't really show them the connection between the secondary drug use and the use of other substances. Now, just to summarize it, since the use of any drug has the potential to interfere with the recovery process, total abstinence is most likely to promote ongoing sobriety and should therefore be the focal point. It is therefore critical that family members and recovering individuals really prioritize maintaining a well-defended front door but also equally prioritize maintaining the well-defended side door against alcohol use and a well-defended rear door against marijuana use to really make sure that recovery continues in a good direction and does not get sidelined by these other substances that very insidiously find their way into the recovery equation. Now, when individuals struggle to eliminate all substances from their lives, this sometimes points to the fact that they're perhaps more dependent on these other substances than perhaps even they realized. Thank you.